You know that moment when dinner plans go off course, you're tired, the fridge is bare, and those frozen meat packs seem like a miracle? Crisp, breading, juicy inside, just pop them in the oven, bite perfect in minutes. They feel like fast, honest comfort food. But here's the thing, that comforting image, it might be hiding something darker. In the past year alone, multiple frozen meat items have been recalled for wood fragments, bone bits, or listeria contamination, things you'd never expect inside what you serve your family. You could already have a box in your freezer that doesn't belong there, unknowingly serving danger instead of dinner. That's why I'm here. In this video, we're going to expose 5 frozen meat products you should avoid, and then restore your confidence with 2 dependable stars you can actually trust. Stay with me, your health and your plate is worth it. Number 1. State Fair corn dogs. You've seen that blue box 1,000 times before. Golden batter, smiling family, a flash of summertime fun. For decades, State Fair has been the quick fix that brings a bit of carnival warmth to an ordinary night. The sound of the oven timer, the smell of sweet cornmeal browning in the air, it feels honest, familiar, comforting. For many of us, it's not just food. It's a shortcut to memories, football games, school lunches, county fairs. The kind of thing you hand to your grandkids with confidence because you've eaten it yourself for years. But this year, that trust cracked. In late September 2025, Tyson Foods, the parent company behind State Fair, announced a massive recall of roughly 58 million pounds of frozen corn dogs. The reason: wood fragments discovered inside the batter, tiny sharp splinters where only dough and sausage should be. It was classified as a Class 1 recall, the USDA's highest alert level reserved for products that could cause serious injury if eaten. The discovery started quietly. A few consumers reported something odd, a rough texture, a bite that didn't feel right. Then the reports multiplied. When investigators looked closer, they found fragments of wood mixed into batches produced across several months. The numbers alone are staggering. 58 million pounds. That's not just a few pallets gone wrong, that's an entire year's worth of trust pulled off the shelves. And yet when you read the fine print of the recall, those small establishment numbers, P894 or EST582, stamped discreetly on each box, you realize something sobering. Unless you checked your freezer that week, you might have served one without knowing. Because we don't check codes, we check convenience. Most of us never imagine danger hiding in a frozen snack. We assume that what's sold in stores has passed every test, that every bite has been double-checked. But the truth is, large-scale production can stretch even the strongest systems thin. When machines run longer than they should, when inspections lag just a few hours, small mistakes slip through, and those mistakes can land right on our dinner tables. It's not a scandal. It's a symptom of a food industry that runs faster than our expectations can keep up with. Now imagine this. A little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen counter. The corn dogs just came out of the air fryer, golden, steaming, perfect. He dips one into ketchup, grins, and takes a bite. But instead of that warm crunch he's used to, he freezes. His face tightens. He chews again, uncertain. Something sharp. His mother looks up from the sink. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" He spits it out, and in his hand lies a tiny wooden splinter dusted with crumbs. No screaming, no injury, just silence. A long, disappointed kind of silence that says more than any headline. That moment, that stillness, is what this recall truly means. It's not about blaming a factory or pointing fingers at a brand. It's about the quiet erosion of trust that happens when food feels less like something made for us and more like something made for efficiency. Because when the small comforts we count on start to betray us, it isn't outrage we feel first. It's sadness. The kind that lingers long after the news cycle ends. These incidents remind us that being careful doesn't mean being fearful. It means being aware. It means reading those tiny codes on the box, paying attention to recall alerts, and understanding that a familiar label isn't always a guarantee. We don't have to give up the foods we love, just the illusion that they're flawless. Number 2. Jimmy Dean pancakes and sausage on a stick. The story didn't end with corn dogs. Because only days after the State Fair recall shook grocery shelves, another familiar name appeared in the same report, a name tied not to fairs or ball games, but to the warmth of breakfast itself. Jimmy Dean pancakes and sausage on a stick. The quick comfort that fills millions of freezers across America was suddenly pulled from stores. The reason was the same, and just as unsettling: tiny fragments of wood discovered inside the batter. The U.S. Department of Agriculture labeled it a Class 1 recall, the most serious kind, meant for foods that could cause real harm. If you warmed one that week, you could have been biting into more than breakfast. The recall covered nearly 58 million pounds of frozen meat, a number so large it stops feeling real. But behind every pound is a kitchen table, a trusting hand, a child's plate. Each represents another small piece of faith quietly withdrawn from the aisle. How could something like this happen again, and so soon? How could two beloved brands under the same parent company, Tyson Foods, fail in the same way? The answer, like most truths in modern food, begins not in malice, but in machinery. Inside, massive production plants, conveyor belts hum endlessly. Batches of batter pour in sausages, roll down chutes, and robotic arms handle what once required human touch. At that speed, thousands of items every hour, one cracked wooden paddle or broken pallet is all it takes. Those splinters don't stop for inspection. They move along sealed into thousands of boxes before anyone notices. Dr. Emily Cardenas, a former USDA food safety inspector, described it plainly. Foreign object contamination isn't about bad people. It's about systems too fast for humans to feel. Once everything depends on automation, the senses that keep food safe, sound, sight, intuition get left behind. That risk doesn't stay in the factory. It travels across packaging plants, distribution centers, truck routes, and finally into homes. By the time it reaches your freezer, it's dressed up in colors of trust, familiar fonts, bright syrup, smiling faces. You don't think of machines or paddles or inspection shifts. You just think breakfast is ready. And that's how the system keeps spinning, not out of deception, but out of momentum. The workers mix, the managers measure, the marketers promise, and the consumers believe. Everyone does their part, but no one really sees the whole picture. Somewhere in that chain, quality stops being personal and becomes statistical. A splinter here, a recall there, a line in a report. It's easy to shrug and move on, to see it as another corporate mishap in a world full of them. But for families who opened their freezer that morning, it felt different. Because when something as simple as breakfast, the calmest, safest part of the day, can turn uncertain, it shakes something deeper. Picture a quiet kitchen at dawn. A teenage boy sits at the counter, phone in hand, half asleep. His mother is packing lunch. The smell of syrup fills the air. He takes a bite, pauses. A wince. She looks up. "You okay?" He nods, unsure. Nothing happens. No injury. Just a pause that hangs there longer than it should. That moment, small, silent, but sharp, is what this story is really about. Not lawsuits or headlines, but trust. The kind you don't notice until it breaks. Because what cracked this time wasn't just wood. It was belief that something as ordinary as a frozen breakfast is still made with care. Number 3, Foster Farms chicken corn dogs. How many times must the same story repeat before it stops being a mistake? First it was State Fair, then Jimmy Dean. Then another name joins the recall list, Foster Farms chicken corn dogs, once advertised as the wholesome, no shortcut choice for American families. By late July of 2024, the company had to recall nearly 4 million pounds of frozen chicken corn dogs, all traced to the same silent culprit, tiny wooden fragments embedded in the batter. A few reported injuries, a nationwide alert, and a familiar apology followed. Out of an abundance of caution, the statement read. The words sound almost rehearsed now, like lines from a play we've seen too many times. It's not shocking anymore, it's routine. But what should unsettle us isn't the recall itself, it's what happens after. Foster Farms didn't fade from stores. Their ads didn't stop running. Their slogans, always fresh, trusted, quality, farm to family, never left the packaging. In a few months, sales recovered. The public forgot. The shelves filled again. How does a brand survive back-to-back quality crises, while smaller producers vanish after one bad week? How does it maintain the glow of reliability after publicly proving the opposite? The answer perhaps lies in something we were never meant to notice. Corporations of this scale operate on an image economy, one where perception is a stronger currency than product. When a recall happens, damage control begins long before the story reaches the evening news. Contracts move, statements are drafted. Press lines are softened, and marketing cycles adjust to drown out the echo. And somewhere between those stages, accountability thins out. No one tells you that the same plants producing recalled batches are often recertified within weeks. That some of the recalled meat, the unsold, the non-injured lots, is quietly rerouted through discount channels or private labels with different packaging. Technically legal, operationally efficient, ethically gray. No one advertises that either. You won't find those details in the company's press release or the USDA summary. You won't hear about the internal investigations that quietly found no systemic fault, or the managers reshuffled across facilities to oversee improvement. You'll only see a redesigned box, maybe a brighter logo, a fresher tagline. And it works. Because marketing isn't about facts, it's about familiarity. The more we see something, the safer it feels, regardless of what's changed behind the label. Some say that's the real secret of the frozen aisle: control the narrative, and you control the appetite. Keep the tone warm, the photos golden, the promises sincere, and the consumer's memory melts faster than ice in an open freezer. Others whisper about closer ties, about revolving doors between regulatory boards and corporate offices, about recalls being delayed just long enough for quarterly shipments to clear. There's no proof of conspiracy, only timing. But timing in business often speaks louder than evidence. What we know for sure is simpler and quieter. Every recall leaves a trace of code on a box, a footnote, in a report, and somehow these traces keep pointing to the same pattern. Production grows faster, oversight grows thinner, and the cycle resets under brighter packaging. The truth is no longer hiding. It's simply buried under routine. Foster Farms wasn't the first to stumble, and it won't be the last. The machine that feeds millions every day is too large to stop, too profitable to slow, and too familiar for anyone to question out loud. That's the paradox of modern trust. The more often it breaks, the easier it becomes to repair with words. Because if a product can be recalled and revived within the same season, then maybe the story we're told isn't just about food safety anymore. Maybe it's about how memory itself gets processed, packaged, and resold. And that realization, quiet, heavy, and lingering, leads us to the next truth hiding in plain sight. Because not every danger comes from what's inside the food. Some come from what's written on the box. Number 4. Wegman's Chicken Nuggets. You think fragments are the only strange things that can hide in frozen meat? Think again. Because the story of Wegmans will give you a colder, more bitter truth, one that isn't born from mistakes but from the very nature of how frozen food is made. In August of 2025, Wegmans, the grocery chain long praised for its trusted family quality, issued a nationwide recall for its fully cooked breaded chicken nuggets. The reason: bone fragments discovered in multiple batches, products labeled with a best before date of August 26, 2025. The contamination was small. The cases few, but the implication was large. A brand known for clean stores and loyal customers had quietly joined the growing list of freezer aisle recalls. Another recall, another week, another box off the shelf. But beneath that quiet update lies something worth noticing, not about Wegmans, but about what frozen food has become. Because this time the problem isn't deception or neglect. It's design. Frozen meat lives in a world of industrial rhythm. It must be made fast enough, cold enough, and consistent enough to meet the hunger of millions. There's no space for delay, no pause for hesitation. A single production line can handle thousands of pounds every hour, moving at a pace that leaves no room for the delicate attention of a butcher or chef. The process isn't careless, it's simply mechanical. Every nugget, every patty, every strip of meat must travel through mixers, formers, fryers, and flash freezers before it ever touches a box. Each step is timed to seconds, calibrated to efficiency. And when you operate at that scale, even the smallest imperfection, a fragment, a chip, a missed inspection, can multiply across tens of thousands of meals. That's what the Wegmans recall really shows. Not failure, but friction. A reminder that speed, volume, and safety don't always move in the same direction. The truth is, frozen meat can never share the same table as fresh. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's industrial. It's born in plants, not kitchens, managed by systems, not senses. It's preserved to survive distance, not to taste alive. When you hold that box of nuggets, you're holding a triumph of engineering and a compromise of nature. The texture, the flavor, even the color have been adjusted to endure storage, transport, and time. It's not deceit, it's survival. And survival always comes with a trade-off. We, the consumers, make that trade willingly. We buy what lasts longer, costs less, cooks faster. We choose convenience over connection. Wegmans didn't invent that bargain, they simply operate within it, as every company must. It's easy to point to recalls and say the system is broken. But the system works exactly as it was built to feed as many people as possible, as cheaply as possible, as quickly as possible. And within that framework, perfection is a luxury no one can afford. So the next time you hear about a recall like this, don't just think of negligence. Think of momentum, of a world that doesn't stop moving long enough to make everything perfect. Mistakes are visible, the pace is invisible, but both shape what ends up in your cart. This isn't anyone's fault. It's simply the cost of the world. We've built a world that values speed over silence, quantity over quality, and preservation over presence. Frozen meat isn't the villain of the story. It's the evidence, the proof that modern food has become less about freshness and more about endurance. So know yourself and choose wisely, because the next story won't be about fragments or bones at all. It'll be about something deeper, the flavor that hides what's really inside. Number 5. Banquet Salisbury. Steak and meatloaf dinners. You've seen the fragments, You've seen the recalls, the bones, the frozen fatigue. But what if the real danger isn't what slips in by mistake, it's what's added on purpose? Because some of the best-selling frozen meat dinners in America don't break apart. They hold together too perfectly. Take Banquet Salisbury steak and meatloaf dinners, the classics of the freezer aisle. They've fed families for decades, wrapped in that familiar red box and nostalgia-heavy slogan. But behind the comfort lies a recipe most people wouldn't recognize. Less than half of what's inside those beef patties is actual beef. The rest is a carefully engineered blend of soy protein concentrate, wheat, gluten, caramel coloring, sodium phosphate, and artificial flavor enhancer E635, all designed to taste like something that's been pan-seared by hand. According to Dr. Richard Fenn, a food chemist at the University of Illinois, when real flavor fades, chemistry steps in. These formulas rebuild texture and aroma molecule by molecule until your brain believes what your tongue wants to hear. That's the trick. It's not contamination anymore. It's craftsmanship in disguise. And for years, it worked beautifully until people started tasting through the illusion. On community forums, consumer boards, and supermarket review pages, the complaints are no longer quiet. They sound like this. Too salty. Feels like paste. Gravy tastes burnt, but there's no sear. Texture's like rubber, not meat. I grew up eating this, but something's changed. Thousands of small voices saying the same thing, something doesn't feel honest anymore. In 2024, the Center for Science and the Public Interest listed Banquet's frozen Salisbury steak among the top 5 ultra-processed meat entrees, highest in sodium and lowest in nutritional transparency. The label passed legal standards, yet nowhere did it clearly state that the meat flavor came largely from lab-processed glutamate and caramelized sugars, not from the steak itself. And this is where the real question begins. When a company perfects the taste of home-cooked through chemicals and marketing, is that innovation or manipulation? Because what these products prove is that food science can now replicate nearly everything the human palate associates with authenticity. The chew, the sizzle, the aroma of smoke, all simulated. And when the illusion is, this good truth starts feeling inconvenient. Dr. Andrea Miller, a sensory analysis expert at Purdue, put it bluntly. People are eating a performance, not a meal. These products are built to please the senses, not to nourish them. It's not just health we lose in that process, it's respect. The respect that once existed between maker and eater, between the person who cooks and the person who trusts. When a brand chooses to save pennies on protein and replace it with stabilizers, they're not only adjusting flavor, they're adjusting honesty. And that's what so many customers have begun to sense. They're not angry because of one ingredient or one recall. They're angry because the warmth they remember now feels staged. Each spoonful tastes familiar but hollow, a ghost of the meal it once was. Maybe that's why more people are walking away from the frozen aisle, choosing fresh butcher cuts again or cooking from scratch. They're not chasing nostalgia, they're reclaiming sincerity. Because taste at its purest is supposed to tell the truth. When flavor becomes a costume, the entire relationship between food and trust collapses. So yes, this is more than just filler or seasoning. It's a quiet insult, one sold in millions of boxes each year. And while brands can advertise value, comfort, and tradition, none of those words replace integrity. No splinters this time, no metal, no bones. Just formulas, legal, profitable, soulless. In the silence of that illusion, something essential disappears: the respect for the people who believed in the name printed on the box. That's why this segment matters most. Because it shows what happens when food stops trying to be honest and starts trying only to be addictive. But the good news is not everyone followed that path. A few names still stand against the current. They make food the slower way, the harder way, the way that still remembers what a meal should feel like. And that's where we're going next. 2 brands, 2 exceptions in a sea of sameness. Proof that real meat, real patience, and real honesty can still survive even in a frozen world. Number 6, Applegate Naturals. Applegate Naturals has been proving that for decades. No mascots, no loud campaigns. Just a simple promise that has survived every storm in the food industry to make meat the right way. Founded in 1987, Applegate started small: one farmer, one mission, changing the meat we eat. It wasn't a slogan for billboards. It was a quiet vow that guided every batch, every recipe, every supplier. While other companies were chasing quantity, Applegate focused on quality, choosing farms that raise animals without antibiotics, without synthetic hormones, without shortcuts. That patience shows. Today, Applegate's frozen line, from chicken strips to breakfast sausages, carries one of the cleanest ingredient labels in its category. No fillers, no artificial nitrates, no preservatives that can't be pronounced. Just real meat, real salt, real spices. And people noticed. Across grocery sites and consumer reports, Applegate has become the rare name that older shoppers mention with confidence. Tastes like the way food used to taste. Finally, something I don't have to Google before I eat. It's not cheap, but it's worth every cent. That last line comes up again and again, worth it, because Applegate doesn't compete on price, it competes on trust. In 2023, the brand received the Good Housekeeping Award for Clean Label Excellence and later recognition from the Humane Farm Animal Care Organization for its transparency in sourcing. Those aren't marketing trophies. They're acknowledgments that real progress in food doesn't come from innovation alone, it comes from respect. Even the way Applegate freezes its products is different. Instead of relying on mass cryogenic processing, batches are frozen quickly after inspection, small, controlled, and traceable. It takes more time, more hands, and more cost. But that's how they make sure what leaves their facility is something they'd serve their own families. Of course, no system is flawless. Applegate still faces the same challenges as any national brand: scaling production, managing costs, and maintaining supply chains, as well product qualities that depend on small farms. There have been occasional delays, shortages, and debates about how natural can remain truly natural once it reaches supermarket scale. But what sets them apart is what they don't compromise. Even under corporate ownership, they refuse to dilute their core standards, still sourcing from independent, verified farms, still rejecting antibiotics and fillers, still inviting audits from third-party organizations. Because for Applegate, reputation isn't something to protect, it's something to earn again every day. And that's what makes them shine. While others rebrand after every recall, Applegate simply continues its work quietly, steadily, one honest meal at a time. Their reward isn't just in certificates or sales charts. It's in the trust of the people who open a box of frozen meat and feel calm instead of cautious. The frozen aisle may be colder than ever, but stars still exist there. Applegate is one of them, not the loudest, not the cheapest, but the one that still believes food should be made for people, not just for profit. And maybe that's how trust is rebuilt, not with promises, but with patience. Number 7, ButcherBox. Trust doesn't always come from a familiar name. Sometimes it begins with a quiet idea, one that grows slowly far from the aisles of the supermarket. ButcherBox began in 2015 with a promise that sounded almost old-fashioned: to bring real, high-quality meat straight from farms to homes without the middle steps that blur accountability. No glossy packaging, no catchy jingles, just a simple belief that if people could see where their food came from, they'd start to trust again. And that's exactly what happened. Every cut that enters a ButcherBox shipment starts with a name, not a number. The company partners with small, independent family farms across the United States where animals are raised humanely and fed on open pastures, not confined feedlots. Cattle are grass-fed and grass-finished, chickens are free-range and organic, and pork comes from crate-free heritage breed sources. Before each batch leaves the farm, it's checked, labeled, and packed within a supply chain traceable from pasture to porch. That's not just marketing, it's part of their contract. Once packaged, every box is flash frozen within hours to preserve natural texture and nutrients. No sodium solutions, no artificial moisture locks. Just cold, clean preservation exactly as nature left it. The result isn't a product designed to last forever. It's one designed to stay honest. It's not the cheapest way to do business. In fact, it's one of the most expensive. While supermarket meat may hover around $5 or $6 per pound, ButcherBox averages $10 to $15 depending on the cut. A box of mixed beef, pork, and chicken can reach $150 or more, a price that might make a casual shopper pause. But here's what that price includes: fair pay for farmers, independent auditing of each supply chain, sustainable packaging that reduces waste, and the peace of mind that comes from knowing you're eating something real. That's why so many subscribers describe it not as a purchase, but as an investment. It costs more, but I taste where my money went. I haven't worried about a label in years. Finally, meat that feels alive again. The company doesn't chase supermarket volume, it chases loyalty. Each customer's box is packed to order, frozen to temperature, and shipped on dry ice directly to their doorstep. It's not industrial, it's intentional. And unlike most producers, ButcherBox doesn't hide behind generic terms like natural or farm-raised. They publish sourcing maps, partner lists, and testing reports. Transparency isn't a sales pitch, it's a policy. Still, their approach isn't without challenge. Maintaining partnerships with dozens of small farms means occasional delays, seasonal shortages, and fluctuating supply costs. Shipping frozen goods with minimal environmental impact is expensive, and not everyone can afford the premium. But the beauty of ButcherBox lies in what they refuse to compromise. They'd rather lose profit than dilute principle or rarity in today's market. When you open a box, there's no fake color, no heavy scent, no marketing gloss. Just meat cleanly cut and neatly packed, ready to be cooked the way you want it. It's simplicity reborn something that feels less like a product and more like a relationship. And that's why it stands out. While others rebuild trust through slogans, ButcherBox rebuilds it through proof every shipment, every cut, every quiet moment, when the taste reminds you of what food used to mean. Because trust doesn't come cheap. But when it's earned the hard way through care, through cost, through consistency, it lasts longer than any promise printed on a box. So yes, it's pricey, it's deliberate, it's patient. But it's also the clearest evidence that honesty, even in the coldest aisle of the food industry, can still survive if you're willing to pay for it. We've walked through a long frozen aisle, from the cracks of contamination to the calm of integrity. We've seen how convenience can cost trust, how speed can blur sincerity, and how some companies still choose patience over profit. In the end, this isn't just about meat, it's about what kind of world we're feeding. Every purchase we make is a vote for care or carelessness, for honesty or illusion. The brands we support become the reflection of what we truly value, not the cheapest bite, but the safest one. Not what fills us faster, but what lasts longer within us. Because food isn't just fuel. It's a relationship between those who make it and those who believe in it. And if we choose with awareness, maybe we can turn this cold, crowded aisle back into something warmer, a place where trust is the first ingredient again.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.